Our next speaker is the CEO of MOIA. MOIA is a company of Volkswagen and was set up for the purpose of redefining mobility for people living in urban areas. So now we will listen to Ole Harms, who is going to tell us how Volkswagen will make cities more livable places at the example of MOIA. So, Ole, the stage is yours.
Hello. Yes, welcome everybody. Pleasure to be here. Yeah, I would love to take the last next 20 minutes to give you a little bit an overview of what MOIA is all about. Obviously, we are the new kids on the block in the Volkswagen group, so and potentially not all of you are aware of us. And then we could have like a couple of minutes, 10 minutes questions if you would like. So, when we look into cities, and that's where we, MOIA, are concerned with, urban mobilities. So, cities around the world all face the same challenges. That is congestion, that is pollution, obviously the hot topic in the press currently, and this is something that people sometimes miss, that is noise. So if you go through the streets and really listen, and I had the pleasure to do that last week in Montreal, then you can see that's really also a very huge problem. And this is totally regardless whether this is Sao Paulo or Hanover or Hamburg. So all the cities face it same challenges. You all know these kind of numbers. It's very active in the press currently, that you are stuck in traffic jam most of the time, that vehicles are parked for most of the time, and that's a huge waste of resources. And in the end, also a huge waste of lifetime. And that's something that we all should take care about. Another thing that everybody is currently talking about is that thing about sharing economy. And there has been this study quite recently, I think half a year ago or a year ago, at the example of New York. In New York, the researchers looked into the utilization of 13,000 yellow cabs. And you need to know that in New York, besides to the 13,000 yellow cabs, we also have 60,000 to 80,000 Uber, Lyft, and the likes. So traffic situation is really getting worse day by day. And the researcher looked into the thing and thought, what would happen if we would share these vehicles? And they found out, and this is really a very striking number, that 95% of these rides could have been shared with only a very minor delay for the passengers. 3 minutes, that's nothing, so you wouldn't even notice. And that would equal then 60 million rides that could have been saved. But actually, it didn't happen. And the next minutes, I will give you a little bit of our explanation why that is currently not happening. So when you look into urban mobility in a city like Hanover, Hamburg, or New York, Montreal, you always see that there are two artificial ends of the whole thing, and one is like more the public transport side of the thing, rather cheap, available to many people, but with the constraints of having to change lines and being determined to schedules and all this kind of stuff. And on the other hand, you have like individual transport, taxi, and the likes. But obviously, that's not suitable for everybody and not for everyday's use, because it's really expensive just when you think about ownership costs, when you think about parking, or about the fares for a taxi. And we found, and that not only we, but also others, but we found that there's a huge space in the middle that needs to be addressed in order to bring people to leave their cars at home or to not even buy one in the first place. And this empty space, there are a couple of different mobility concepts that could be applied. And we are very much focused on what we call pooling as our first product. in certain cities, for example, in Germany, we have like 20% modal share of public transport and up to 40% modal share of individual cars. And that's exactly what we want to address. We see ourselves, MOIA, as a complementary offering to public transport, not a substitution. We want to really decrease the number of cars in our streets. So how do we want to do that? That's a very typical picture today, how you use cars. So you see that if you're stuck in a traffic jam in the morning, you look into the other cars, you see people, mostly there's only one in that big SUV and is stuck in the same traffic jam like you are. And most of the guys share the same like routes and destination. And with our concept, we want to bring several different people into one car instead of using their own cars for the same thing. And we brought a little film to give you an overview about the concept, and then I will explain a little bit more in detail.
Request a MOIA simply by selecting a destination on the MOIA app. You're ready in a few clicks. Our algorithm calculates a MOIA to pick you up and a route that gets you to your chosen destination as quickly as possible. The app will direct you to the most convenient virtual stop, never more than 250 meters from you. It's important for all passengers that the vehicle keeps moving swiftly, so we use quick flow boarding, giving you a fair window of time to embark the vehicle without causing a delay to your or anyone else's journey. Sit back and enjoy the ride. We thought about how to make your journey as comfortable as possible. You'll notice that your seat has lots of space around it. While you will share your ride in a MOIA, you won't have to share your personal space. The on-screen display notifies you that you have arrived. Step out at your virtual stop, meters from your destination. MOIA, social movement.
Thank you. So, and there are a couple of points that I really would love to point out here. So I think we skipped one chart. So not sure whether we would be able to go back. Exactly, that was the important chart. Remember, I told you before at the example of New York that people today do not share their rights, at least not to an extent where it really shows some impact in the daily traffic situation in a city. And this is for certain reasons. And we want to tackle all these reasons because we think that only then we can convince people to take these new opportunities and to use them. And first of all, and that was the main part of the video, it's the vehicle. We believe that for sharing, you need to have the right vehicle. We did some studies throughout the whole world. We did mystery shopping. We used all the services of our competitors. And the first thing that we've been told is like, I do not want to sit cramped shoulder to shoulder with my neighbor in the backseat of a car. So that's really something that I hate, and that's not very convenient. You also do not want to crawl over the knees to reach your seat, like when you do that, for example, in the US with a big American SUV. Then the whole thing around infotainment, Wi-Fi usage, and so on, that's something that people are looking for. Remember, we do not want to build a new public transport service. We want to address the people that use private cars today. And this thing needs to be compared when it comes to comfort and usability to the private car. So that's the first piece, and that's what we are committed together with our friends in our group. We want to build vehicles for that very purpose, for ride sharing. The second lever here is these vehicles are highly utilized, and they need to be up and running the whole day. So they need to be optimized for total cost of operation for the fleet management. It's fully electric. It needs fast charging infrastructure. We are currently setting up infrastructure with the capacity of 350 kilowatt high power charging, which is really fast. But also the batteries need to be able to being recharged at high speed a couple of times a day. And then the next lever that determines whether this service will be used and people will share their rights, that's the algorithm, that's the technology, and that's what all the tech companies currently are working on, where we talk about AI and algorithmic optimization and so on, because that really makes a difference. So in the end, price isn't the first thing that really counts. It's really like reliability of a service. So when does the car arrive? And the second thing is psychology. If you drive in the MOIA and you choose that you want to have a pooled ride, you can also choose that you do not want to have such a big pooling factor, then it gets a little bit more expensive. But if you choose for the most, let's say, efficient thing, then you want to, or you will share your ride with others. But once you see your destination and then suddenly the car turns right to pick up another passenger, you are really not very happy because you just saw your destination. So it's lots about psychology, it's about real-time traffic information, it's about traffic patterns, it's about knowledge of certain patterns in the city, like usually in the morning it's very crowded here, and in the evening it's better to go there. So lots of things that we need to consider in our system. Very importantly, we are designing our service end-to-end. That means the hardware, the vehicle, and the software, because we believe that could be our, as a Volkswagen Group, differentiator. Because in the end, if we are able to build the right vehicles, the Volkswagen Group can help us to bring that to the market at scale in every market in the world. Our claim is return cities to people. That's our very purpose. Sometimes people ask me, isn't that a little bit strange to be part of the Volkswagen Group and trying to bring cars off the street? And the answer is no, because these challenges that every city is facing, that's not a genie that will go into the bottle again. So there will be regulation, there will be a high demand for shared services. We see that we are currently in discussions with over 50 cities around the world, and they all say to us, listen, we need ride sharing, we need ride pooling service. We will definitely change the law. We will have preferred lanes for shared services. We think about congestion taxes. I just came back from a region in North America where they really think about prohibiting that AVs will be used as owned cars. AVs will only be allowed in shared fleets from their standpoint, and they want to work on respective laws here. And for us, it's really the task that we want to reimagine urban mobility together with the stakeholders in the city. That's really important, and I think that also makes us a little bit different to others. We are talking to the regulators, we are talking to the public transport companies, we are in very advanced discussions on partnerships with public transport companies to really build an amendment service to their things. And we also talking to the people, we do co-creation every couple of weeks with our customers to really develop the services together, because that's not only a service, it's also work that needs to be done in order to achieve a change in mind, to change mobility behavior. Collaboration with cities, with other stakeholders I just mentioned, and the co-creation events. Currently, we are still in preparation mode, so we are just 1.5 years old. We grew our team from 8 people in starting of January 2017 to now 110. We plan to be around 200 by the end of the year, beginning of next year. And we are currently building really the system, 15 different technology components we developed, from the passenger app, the driver app, the back-end system, the algorithm piece, the routing engine, and everything. And what you can see currently is a service test fleet of 35 vehicles here in the city of Hanover. Up to date, we did like 150,000 rides with a closed user group of 3,000 customers in these 35 vehicles. And it's really encouraging because technology is working already. We have like 70 people in a vehicle a day, which really is very promising because that's our actual like objective, to bring several people into one car. We have a waiting list of around 20,000 people that want to use our service here in Hanover, and we are working to launch commercially here really for everybody within the next weeks and few months. Then the big next step, obviously, is then Hamburg. By the end of this year, beginning of next year, we will then bring our complete system. So really like the electric vehicle that we built exactly for that purpose, the fleet operation with hubs where we implemented all the charging infrastructure with our drivers specially trained with all the fleet management solutions and so on, and with our passenger solutions. That's what MOIA is all about. Obviously, to give you a little bit of a glimpse, to extend these kind of services, that's also our objective. We are starting with pooling because we think that has the biggest impact. We want to add more individualized options in the future. And obviously, and we will have a couple of discussions around that topic later and also tomorrow, autonomous driving will also play a key role in future mobility services and also at MOIA, because certain kind of services you only can bring to the market, for example, in underserved areas or for special purposes with autonomous driving. That's something what we currently also work on, but what I potentially would rather present then next time here on stage. So with that, I would close that little presentation and would love to answer your question whenever there be some. Thanks.
Thanks, Ole. We already have some questions for you.
Great.
So I would love to start with that one. Do you plan to extend your service offer to more rural areas?
Mm-hmm. So in the beginning, we are very much focused on the urban environment with the connection points to the suburban areas. One needs to understand that rural and urban mobility are quite different business models, and which every startup knows is, at least in the beginning, you need to stay very focused and very concentrated on the certain thing. Obviously, and that potentially goes a little bit into the direction of autonomous driving, we also step by step want to connect more rural areas in the future.
And the next one is, will CEBIT replace the MOIA concept in the long run, or did you see both concepts to be survived?
I mean, obviously, certain areas in our group are working on certain visions for the future. I mean, a lot of the components that we currently see in a CEBIT could also be imagined for future shuttle vehicles. Obviously, we believe that we need special purpose vehicles and we need different sizes. So in my mind, I would see some kind of 6 to 8 or 10-seater in the future, but also smaller pods for certain environments.
And will MOIA meet the requirements of the Personenbeförderungsgesetz?
Yeah,
very German word.
Yeah, that's a good one, because regulation is there, and we love regulation, even if that sounds strange. But these kind of services need to be regulated, otherwise you will not have the acceptance from all the stakeholders in the city. But this very law, the Personenbeförderungsgesetz in Germany, that's really from a very analog time and age. And we are currently really discussing and working with regulators to transfer that into a digital age, because a service like pooling is currently not allowed in Germany or in other European cities. And that means that you have in each and every city, you need to find special ways, special agreements, and so on. It's very time consuming. To get a concession costs us around a year or more. And that's something where we really risk, especially as Germany, to fall even more behind our neighbors and competitors.
Mm-hmm. And someone is asking, you are 2 years on the market. When are your services available?
Okay, so that's not entirely correct. So it's 1.5 years.
Okay.
It's still, we wanted to create a service in a very reliable way. We brought the service test to the street only 10 months after we've been founded with 8 people. So we thought that was a quite nice thing. But obviously now it's 2018-19. You will see us in the streets in Hanover, Hamburg. We are also currently working on projects in different other cities, but very importantly, we do not want to scale our mistakes. We just want to learn the business model, we want to optimize it, we want to understand how to work with partners, and then we obviously have the ambition to globally scale.
And what is your vision for MOIA for the next 2 years exactly?
For the next 2 years, it's more or less really making the product perfect. Assess different engagement types when we talk about partnerships. For example, utilities are interested in operating our infrastructure hubs, our charging hubs as a business model. We've been approached by PTOs to work together with us to supply us with drivers and depots and all this kind of stuff. So we really need to build our system and the franchise model. So we want to design our business as a franchise model to also have other partners helping us scaling. That's what we are currently concerned with. We're preparing markets in different areas of the world, like US, Asia, and then after these 2 years, we want to go into scaling.
And is there the intention to use cars which or not from Volkswagen Group?
Yeah, I mean, actually, we are totally convinced that the combination of hardware and software could be the key differentiating factor for a group like Volkswagen, because if we are able to design and build these kind of vehicles at the right cost and combine that with the greatest tech that we are currently developing, then this is something what pure tech players from the US, for example, could not offer. And then to scale these kind of vehicles through our production lines in China, USA, wherever, South America, that should be a huge advantage.
Is there room for luggage bags?
Yeah. So obviously, that was something that we also put into our consideration. Just to understand how the co-creation worked. When we started the vehicle project, we put 6 chairs in a room. And we said to guys that we invited, yeah, please take a seat, would that be good? And where should the luggage be? Next time it was a prototype. Next time it was like an advanced prototype. And we designed it in a way that you can see from every seat where your luggage is and that you place it directly at the entrance.
And to make it viable, how many vehicles are needed per people in a city/town?
It's not so much about the people, so obviously density, it's an important factor. We rather measure this in dense urban areas with regards to the area. And what we are currently assuming, which is also supported by lots of other studies, is that you need 3 to 4 vehicles per square kilometer. And that shows that pooling is really something where you need big numbers, otherwise you cannot offer a service that really suits the needs of people. And for example, the 1,000 vehicle that we want to bring to the streets in Hamburg, that only equals 1% of modal share.
And when do you think you can launch autonomous MOIA on the streets? That's a very interesting question. Obviously, autonomy, as I said, is really important. Now it's the time to build the right partnerships, to build the system, to validate the system in certain different environments. That does not only mean weather conditions, but also regulatory environments. And we currently see that relevant commercial applications will hit the streets, not in every city, but to a decent amount from 2023 onwards, somewhere like that. And Felix is asking, people in Paris, for example, are craving for your service. When will you expand further?
Yeah, so obviously I would love to be in all these nice cities tomorrow, but then the other thing that I mentioned hits in or kicks in, we need first to understand the business model. We obviously are in discussions with nearly all these nice cities in Europe, and we understand really the demand for these services, but I think that would potentially take us another 1 or 2 years from now.
Okay. You said that the customer does not need to walk more than 215 meters to the next pickup. Do you also have a maximum wait time to be achieved?
Yeah, so obviously the adoption rate of this service is determined basically by these two factors. First of all, people do not accept to walk more than these 200, 250 meters. That's why we put a virtual grid of stop points across the city. For example, here in Hanover, 90 square kilometers, we have like 2,200 virtual stops. Obviously, waiting time needs to be as low as maximum. I mean, in the end, it needs to be, we are talking about 3, maximum 5 minutes.
We receive so many questions, but when you come now, you can use slido.com and use the event code CEBIT 18 and then the hall 27. We have another one, and yeah. Very interesting. What is the business impact on Volkswagen?
The business impact, actually, we assume that this will be huge. So we want to really be a relevant cornerstone of the future Volkswagen Group. We want to be amongst the leading companies when it comes to mobility as a service by 2025. As I said before, there's huge and increasing demand for these sharing services. Today it's a niche. You talk about 20 vehicles here and 50 there. But we understand from all the discussions we have that the regulation that will really hit into the thing. We are just having discussions with a major city that wants to get rid of 30% of their private vehicles and ask us whether we could work together to find solutions. So that will come. People ask more and more for this kind of service. It's a transformative journey. Will not happen overnight, but the impact will be huge, and it's a multi-billion-dollar market.
Robin is asking, are you planning to offer more long-range trips, for example, Hanover to Hamburg?
That's currently not on the map. That's what I meant before. This business model is quite different. So I would not exclude that for the time in a couple of years from now, because in the end, lots of mobility use cases need to be covered in order to convince people to leave their car where it is or not to purchase one.
And Roger is asking, what are the key partners to drive your digital business?
Yeah, that's an interesting one. So first of all, we really want to build our technology stack and all the important components by ourselves. Because we are totally convinced that we need to own the decent part of the business, like the mobility backbone of the thing. And there we talk about really like everything from back-end and telematics and the whole routing piece, the gateway to the vehicle and so on. So there are crucial things that we need to own, that we need to understand. Obviously, we are working with and assessing current digital, a couple of digital partners to bring certain capabilities that we could plug in our technology stack. And beside that, obviously, when we, for example, talk about autonomy, we are in some early discussions in certain areas of the world. We need the local public transport company. We need the local telco provider. And when I just think about 5G networks and these kind of things, so that's rather the kind of partnerships we are talking about.
Okay, thanks, Ole. That was the last question. So thanks for your inspiring talk, and give a big applause to all.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.